Wednesday edition of Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Got a good show lined up for you today. We're going to be heading to the Titan MR hotline here shortly with Zac Blobner from down in the Tampa Bay area. We're going to talk a little bit of everything down there in the Tampa Bay sports world. The second half of the show, we're going to have Rex Grossman, former Gator quarterback, join us as well. But first, let's get straight to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by Zac Blobner. How you doing, Zac?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Thanks for having me on the show and letting me jump in with you a little bit today.
Absolutely. You're a 2012 graduate of the University of Florida from the journalism school. Talk a little bit, growing up, did you want to be a sportscaster, work in the sports field? Is that why you went to the University of Florida?
Yeah, I always tell people I've been very blessed with direction in my life. Realized pretty early on that I was never going to be as good of an athlete as a guy like a Shane Matthews. So I pivoted right to the microphone. And, it's funny, in elementary, middle school, and high school, there's these morning show things you can get into, a little video production, a little this, a little of that. And I actually did that all throughout my grade school education. And then I went to Hillsborough Community College in the Tampa Bay area, did mass comm, and got to go to the University of Florida after that, doing broadcasting journalism there. And I've really always had a passion for talking and talking sports specifically, and really been lucky to know that pretty early on in life and get this far so far in my career.
Well, we've had a lot of great guys and gals come out of that school. Talk a little bit about Steve Russell. He's the one that taught you all the ropes?
He is, yes. Yeah, Steve is great, man. I love Steve. And, it's funny, you get there and you're on campus. And the first day, I remember when I got to Gainesville and I'm on campus listening, he was one of the first people that actually talked to me and to the rest of the students, again, on day one. And one of the first things he does is warn you about how hard it is and about how if you don't love it and you don't have the passion for it, it's going to be a tough ride in this field, and not just in college, but especially after the fact. And he almost scares you a little bit. But by the end of my time in Gainesville, he was a guy that I really could lean on. And whenever I'm in a press box now and it's Gator related, the first thing I do is I look down that list and I look for his name so I can walk over and say hello to him. And man, what he's meant to me and so many other Gators, it's hard to put into words. It really is, but great guy to lean on both as a mentor and as a friend. And I really appreciate everything he's done for me and the opportunities he's given me. And he does a good job, like I said, at scaring you, but also helping you get over those hurdles that you'll inevitably come across. And that's a hard thing to teach somebody to be able to teach others to do. It just kind of is inherent, and he has it.
You were part of the Cheap Seats show, right?
I was, yes, the Cheap Seats. Oh, man, I haven't heard that phrase in a while. I think I'm still on their Facebook group, too. I peek in there from time to time. But, yeah, the Cheap Seats were there's probably still at least a handful of people from the Cheap Seats that I talk to. Tori is a girl that's in Detroit now doing stuff with the Lions. She was with me. Kyle Ben-Zion was with the Falcons. He did some stuff with me when I was there. Blake Alderman does a lot of recruiting stuff, still in the SEC and with the Gators. I forgot what outlet he's with now. But, yeah, there was a handful of us cheap seaters that worked pretty closely together that are still working in sports. That's good stuff.
Last thing before we get to what you're doing now, didn't you have some kind of late night show on Kiss 105 here locally?
That's a real throwback. Look at you learning the background info. Yeah, I did. I did a little overnights for Kiss 105, and I consider that my true start career-wise because obviously, it's one thing if you're a student and you're on campus and you're learning, and that was so great for me, but Kiss was the first place that gave me a paycheck to do it. So a certainly different place in my heart and in my back pocket there. But, yeah, that was overnights. I do sports with Kiss. I did music with them, and I enjoyed that. It was fun. It was different, and I think that was what allowed me to feel okay with going to a place like iHeartRadio instead of ESPN. It made me aware that you didn't necessarily have to start with something that you knew was huge on sports. You could start or you could go somewhere else and still be successful. So there was, that background and having KISS in my background really helped me out there in Gainesville.
Good stuff. Refresh your vehicle and your brand with a vehicle wrap from Wrap Spot. July is your lucky month at Wrap Spot. Mention promo code Shane and receive 13% off your vehicle wrap. We're speaking with Zac Blobner. You can follow him on Twitter at Zac on the mic. Zac, so you're down in the Tampa Bay area now. Before we get to football, that's what we really want to talk about. Baseball starts here, in a day or two. So have you seen the Rays? Are they going to be playing their home games in the Tropicana Park, whatever it's called nowadays? How weird is it going to be? I've seen some preseason games on TV with no fans. It's just very, very strange, but at least we're going to have baseball.
Yeah, it's a little eerie. The Rays are one of those teams that's really affected or is trying to affect the normalcy feel by adding in crowd noise and piping in different sound effects, some intro or in-between music between innings. So they're trying to find different ways to get creative to make it at least feel a little bit like it would during a regular game day over at the Trop in St. Pete. And I know a lot of people like to make the jokes like, oh, the Rays aren't used to having a lot of fans anyways, so they'll feel right at home. There actually probably is some truth to that, as much as I love the Rays. And I, have been, even before I was covering them as a reporter, I still was going to their games as a fan. I grew up in Tampa Bay, so I've always been a big Rays guy. But I do think that the Rays are going to be one of the teams less affected by the lack of stadium noise, of authentic stadium noise when it comes to their season. I mean, this is a team that's primed and ready. They had the best bullpen in baseball last year. They have one of the better starting rotations with a guy like Charlie Morton, their opening day starter on Friday against the Blue Jays at the Trop. Blake Snell obviously won the Cy Young 2 years ago. And Tyler Glasnow, who is the youngest of the three, the newest of the bunch, he came in last year, and the first few months of the season, he was the best pitcher in baseball. But what happened is he got hurt, and then he was derailed for a little while there, and, the rest is history until the postseason started. So the Rays pitching and bullpen very well set up to be successful and strong again, even in a 60-game season, despite whatever crowd noise is or isn't there. The hitting is an area where I am a little bit concerned. A guy like Tommy Pham, who helped the team last year a lot, is no longer on the squad. They've replaced him with some other players, though, like a Hunter Renfroe. And I'll say this as we talk baseball in Gainesville. Mike Zunino, I love him to death, former Florida Gator. I go to bat, no pun intended, for him daily in Tampa Bay because he could not hit the ball to save his life last season. He's one of the best defensive catchers in the game still today. The pitchers love him, love the way he calls a game. But he needs to get that bat working, or I'm going to continue to get destroyed, and so is he on the radio waves here in Tampa. But so far, however much stock you want to put in practice in these simulation games, his power bat has been working. He's hit home runs 2 of the last 3 days or something along those lines in these scrimmage games. So there's reason to be hopeful for Zunino.
Yeah, and a lot of people think with the shortened season, the way the Rays do their rotation, they have those openers or they only pitch a couple innings here and there, that they could be a sleeper in this shortened season.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, look, first of all, they did make the postseason last year, and they did, have a deep run. They were 1 game away from beating the Astros, and who knows, what extracurricular activities the Astros were even using in that final game that they beat the Rays and eliminated them. So I think the Rays already were set up to have a good season, but you talk about 60 games and pitchers that typically would be more stretched out through a regular spring training and have their full year to kind of get their arms working the way they want them to. A lot of teams don't have that luxury because it is a quicker spring training 2.0 now to get them prepped for a shorter season. And the Rays, because they've used the bullpen day strategy, the opener strategy, and some kind of hybrid version of the two, if Morton or Glasnow or Snell or any of the other starting pitchers come out and they only throw 4 or 5 innings and they're like, hey, my arm's a little fatigued, I'm done for the day. The Rays have so many guys that they can call in here from the bullpen to fill in that role, from Brendan McKay, who came out last year, was his first season in the bigs and looked very good. Ryan Yarborough, who helped almost pitch a perfect game in a similar lean on type scenario with Ryan Stanek, who's no longer on the squad. Yanni Chirinos. I mean, they really are loaded up. And look, you know how it is when it comes to the national media talking about baseball. If you have strong pitching, I mean, slugging's great, but if you have strong pitching and you can rely on bullpen arms, even in a short season, you're going to be a team that a lot of people pick to win a lot of games.
News with Brady, Gronkowski, that whole crew. I mean, the Bucs have some great skill players, maybe some of the best skill players Brady's had around him in his career. I know he had Moss and Aaron Hernandez and Gronk and that whole crew. But these guys are extremely talented. I know they've been practicing at a local high school here and there. Just talk a little bit about the buzz and the excitement down in Tampa.
At the Brady bump. And, I mean, we can certainly tell just from the amount of, different numbers that we calculate based on when Brady signed in Tampa and the amount of calls the station got, the amount of coverage that it's getting, that as far as from a media aspect, Tom Brady signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is the biggest thing that's ever happened to this franchise outside of winning the Super Bowl in the early 2000s. And I don't say that lightheartedly. I mean it. And he hasn't even played a game yet. So that goes to show what to expect as long as the season does take place and things are able to stay on track. I agree with what you said, too, as far as this being the best array of weapons that Tom Brady's had in his career in a single season. It's very similar to me to when Peyton Manning got to Denver. You had the Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders. You really had a lot of good weapons there in the backfield, the tight end position. I think Julius Thomas at the time had like 15 touchdowns that one season. Wes Welker. I mean, so to me, what Manning was able to do, and perennially a top 10 receiver since he's come into the league, statistically speaking, never had less than 1,000 yards catching the ball. Chris Godwin, another receiver, breakout season last year. O.J. Howard, who's a monster. Chris Godwin, another receiver, breakout season last year. O.J. Howard, who's a monster. Gator fans will remember his days at Alabama, and he hasn't really come around yet. But as he continues to try to jump into what the Bucs hoped he would be, you got Gronkowski down here. You got Cameron Brate, another really good tight end. And then there's some running backs that are really young. Ronald Jones Jr., he's going into year. So that's good. His arrow's pointing up. And then Keyshawn Vaughn, the rookie coming out of Vanderbilt, is a guy that the Bucs are very excited about. They are probably going to mix him in sparingly to start, but he'll get some opportunities, especially if Ronald Jones Jr. Continues to struggle in the blocking game, which is really his only weakness from what we've been able to watch so far. So, yes, the buzz surrounding the Bucs feels very real. And I don't see a lot of drop-off in what Brady's been able to do from the last few years to, when he was in his prime, considering that he's had no weapons really to work with the last couple of seasons, especially last year. Edelman was banged up most of the season. I mean, it was not a great offense in New England. So the buzz is real, and really we're just hoping they get a chance to play. That's what we're keeping our fingers crossed for here in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Last thing for you, Zach, before we let you go. What's the buzz like in the Tampa area down there about the Florida Gators and what Dan Mullen has done in his 2 years here?
It's good. A lot of people were really excited. We have a pretty good Gator contingency down here in the Tampa Bay area. And the thing with Dan Mullen, so he steps in and immediately in Tampa Bay, the Gator crowd around here is like, man, this guy's so likable. We're going to embrace him. We're going to like him. And I'm like, yeah. Everybody likes the coach at Fricor, Muschamp with the angry faces and people embracing that. You always like a guy at first. But Mullen, even starting high and, still not being able to get past Georgia, has continued to grow in popularity in Tampa Bay. People like him more now than they did 2 years ago. And he still has some room to, even make himself even more popular with some big wins, hopefully this season. So Mullen is a very, very beloved figure already, again, locally here, and he's well respected. I'll tell you this, and I just kind of said something about it in my last few sentences. The one thing we talk about in Tampa Bay outside of the actual Gator Nation here locally, just college football fans in general, outside of Gainesville, is Mullen cannot beat Kirby Smart, or he hasn't been able to get past Georgia. And I think that that's really the last hurdle to make him locally taken seriously, is you got to win that game in Jacksonville against the Dogs.
I agree. Zach, let everybody know how they can hear you down there in the Tampa area.
Yeah, absolutely appreciate it. So at 95.3 WDAE, iHeartRadio, you can find me every morning. I'm a big part of the Ronnie and T Crash show, and I do a lot during football season. Like I said, hopefully we get that rolling here on Saturdays and Sundays, and you guys can get me in the mix. But the easiest way, more than anything, is social media 24/7 at Zach on the mic, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can find me on there. We can always chat football and Gators.
Good stuff, my man. Appreciate you taking the time to join the program. Be safe down there, and we'll talk to you soon, Zach.
Anytime, Shane. Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Yep, that's Zac Blobner. Join us down in the Tampa area. We're going to take our first time out of the pro. When we come back, we'll be joined by good old quarterback Rex Grossman. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Time out! Time out! Hey! Time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Area Rug Masters, your number one choice in Gainesville for all your area rug cleaning services. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, The Digital Mortgage Guide, Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank, Gator Bait Media, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Gators Dockside, Aikido America Martial Arts and After School,
Doreen Weeby Realtor, Caldwell Banker, M.M. Parrish,
Radware, Style Cuts, Wrap Spot, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Chris Doring Mortgage, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Darshakow Insurance,
MB Listings,
and Pomodoro Cafe. If you are interested in promoting your business on this show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the Advertise button or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support this show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
He's looking, still looking, he's going for the end zone, he's got a touchdown!
There are the times you've had him on.
Here we go. Welcome back to a Wednesday edition of Pot Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. At Center State Bank, we put business first. We're the largest community bank in the state of Florida and understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. Center State Bank, member FDIC. Now we're going to go to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by Gator great, number 8, Rex Grossman. Good morning, Rex. How are you, my man?
Good morning. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing great. We appreciate you taking the time. Hope you and your family are staying safe down in South Florida. Rex, I want to go back to your days growing up in Indiana. Obviously, you were a tremendous high school player there. Did you play other sports other than football growing up?
Yeah, growing up, I played football, basketball, and baseball. I mean, the standard sports. And I was a huge, basketball fan growing up. I lived about, 5 minutes from campus at Indiana University, and, followed Bob Knight, and that whole era was right in my wheelhouse. I was born in 1980. So that whole basketball scene was kind of what I was all about. But I grew up in a football family. So every Sunday we would throw the football at halftime of the NFL games, and, just loved baseball, basketball, and football. So.
Yeah, you were the player of the year there in the state of Indiana, won a state championship. I would like you to tell the story because, I don't think Florida was actually recruiting you. I think there's a story that you were going down with your family somewhere here in the state of Florida for a summer vacation or something, and y'all stopped by Gainesville and you dropped off your high school tapes. This was before nowadays you can just on Twitter send high school tapes. Just tell that story real quick.
Well, I kind of, I had a really good junior year. Ended up being player of the year in the state of Indiana as a junior. And I kind of wanted to get everything out of the way before my senior year as far as where I was going to go. I didn't want the distraction or any of that. So I was not getting recruited very heavily by Florida State or Miami, really, but I was getting the standard letters. I was getting recruited pretty heavily by Penn State and, Purdue and IU and places like that. But, I wanted to play big time college football and, in the warm weather that threw the ball a lot. And so obviously I wanted to play, for the Gators. That would be my ultimate dream. So I went down on spring break of my junior year, and they kept telling me, we don't really recruit Indiana, but you can come on down for an unofficial visit if you want. Kind of like, don't waste your time, but I mean, if you're down here, come on in. So basically that's what we did. And we told them we were coming, on a random Tuesday around noon. And there's a secretary, Betty, I can't get her name. That's right. Yeah. So she was my host for the day. Just kind of saw us when we came in that morning and just started giving us a tour of the weight room. And this is where the coaches meet. And she's like, you're probably not going to be able to see any coaches today. So I was kind of bummed out. And the hallways in the coaches' offices were, really skinny and kind of turned a little bit. And you could hear Coach Spurrier just kind of, hey, what's going on, everybody? Just from down the hall. And she looked at us like, you're going to be able to meet Coach. He's not playing golf today. So I was kind of nervous. He was kind of a legend at that point already. So he comes walking around the corner and kind of introduces himself and kind of pats us on the back and kind of keeps walking. I said, hey, Coach, can I show you my highlight tape before you leave? Because I had it with me. So he was like, kind of scratched his head like he didn't really want to, but like, all right, yeah, throw it on. Let's go. Come on, Hatchie, throw his tape on. So puts the tape on and watches it for about 20 minutes. And that 20-minute highlight, as soon as that was over, he was like, you know what? I'm going to throw my highlight tape on. So he threw his highlight tape on, and then he threw highlights of you and Danny playing and explaining how he would get wide receivers open with route combinations and his philosophy of offense. And that turned into a 3-hour lunch, which turned into 2 weeks later after I get home, a written offer. And it took me about 5 minutes to call and say yes. So that's kind of how it happened. I mean, spring break, randomly in my junior year, going on a unofficial recruiting trip, basically kind of recruiting myself, or at least making it happen, forcing the issue, is how, really I got my dream signing. Because, I mean, there's no better place, especially at that time, late 90s, than being a recruit at the University of Florida to play quarterback, because of what you and Danny really kind of set the table. So
yeah, that's a great story. That is a wonderful story. Yeah. So Rex, you get to the University of Florida, and I'll never forget. It was the off season. I was at a spring practice. Y'all were going to have a scrimmage in the swamp, and I had talked to Coach, coming back from the off season, and he's like, "Yeah, I got some good young quarterbacks. I don't know who's going to be the starter. Come out and watch the scrimmage." So I sat in the south end zone where I could kind of see, like I was sitting in the pocket in the shade underneath, and I didn't really know who anyone was. I'd heard of Brock Berlin because I think he was like the player of the year in the country or something like that. And after that scrimmage, I said, "Coach, I don't know who number 8 is there, but he just has that it factor. Just watching him in the pocket, his anticipation." So I'll never forget that scrimmage. And it's between you and Brock Berlin, and maybe Jesse was still there. I'm not sure. But talk a little bit about your career. I mean, you had a phenomenal 3 years here at Florida, especially your first 2. Just talk a little bit about what game stands out the most in your mind.
Well, like I said, I didn't feel underappreciated, but I definitely didn't feel like I was, the guy ever. And I got there early. I redshirted a full year and was able to practice against on the scout team, and they were live against us. And that year, I was able to really develop having to anticipate some throws and going up against big time college football defenses. So that year and a half really was invaluable for me. But my redshirt freshman year, the moment that sticks out to me the most is I was third string, and Brock Berlin was moved ahead of me one day, and this was about 5 games in, and Jesse sprains his ankle. Brock Berlin can't get the signals from the sidelines, and Coach Spurrier kind of looks at me like, "Get in there," and we ended up losing the game, but I went like 14 for 16, 2 touchdowns, and I don't know how many yards, but I never left the field since then. So as a starter, at least, I got yanked a couple times, but for the most part, that was it. And, it's just about taking advantage of your opportunities. So.
No doubt about it. Let's go to your sophomore year, which was a phenomenal year. Y'all were really good on offense. You should have won the Heisman Trophy. There's no question about it. But just talk about that team. So many Gator fans talk about the 96, the 96, the 06, and 08, the national championship teams. But, just talking to Coach Spurrier the past few years, now that he's retired, he's been reminiscing a lot. He really thinks that his last team, that you were the quarterback with Riche, Jabbar Gaffney, and Taylor Jacobs, that was as talented a team as he had. And unfortunately, y'all had to have that game rescheduled against Tennessee that pretty much kept you out of playing for the SEC and the national title. Talk about that year and that team.
Yeah, that team had been building for a while. We had an unbelievable wide receiving core with Riche and Taylor and Jabbar. Jabbar was unbelievable. He just had a knack of being able to separate, and was so damn good. And our defense was really good. And at that point, I felt super confident and comfortable with coach's scheme, and everything was kind of just ripe and ready for a great year. There was no weakness on our team at all. And we got off to a great start and just went 6-0, boom, boom, boom. I think we were ranked number 1. And then we got beat at Auburn on a Saturday night game. It's one of those trip up games, but we were able to rebound. And like I said, we lost a crucial game right at the end of the year, right before the SEC championship against Tennessee. And, that was it. I look back at that year with such pride, but also disappointment at the same time, because I knew we were, if not the best team in the country, right there with them. So we should have at least won the SEC and could have got a chance to win that national championship along with the Heisman Trophy. So, it was a phenomenal year, but a little disappointing at the same time because we were so damn good.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. We're speaking with Rex Grossman on the Titan MR hotline. Rex, the one game that stands out to me, and I can't remember what city I was in. I was playing with a million teams, but it had been your sophomore year. It was in Baton Rouge, Tiger Stadium. The throws you made in that game, you threw for about 400 and something yards, right? Talk about that game. That was a ridiculous game on your part.
Yeah, whenever as you're playing for Coach Spurrier and the Gators, and you walk into the stadium and everybody hates you, and that kind of fuels you that they're all fired up. You go in on the bus and they're flicking you off, and it was just something about that energy that I think our whole team just got off to a good start. And the momentum just never stopped. Our defense was getting interceptions. I think Todd Johnson had a couple picks, and we were just rolling. And, Coach Spurrier allows you to change the play calls. And I was just, getting out of bad plays and getting into good plays, and they were working and they were blitzing, and we were getting the ball off and hitting people in stride. And it was just one of those games where, you were in the zone. Everybody on our team was in the zone, and I think we shut them down pretty quickly. It was over by middle of the third quarter, but I'll always remember that game. It's probably the best game I ever played in my life. So, you'll always remember those. So it was out on the road in Baton Rouge. I mean, doesn't get any better playing for the Gators and going and stomping somebody on a Saturday afternoon. So
no doubt about it.
Just great memories.
So after your tremendous sophomore year, I mean, there was disappointment, as you mentioned, because that team had a chance to do it all. And then y'all win the Orange Bowl. And then you get word that Coach Spurrier is going to try the National Football League. As a player on that team and being quarterback, what went through your mind?
Well, I kind of instantly was in shock. I felt like, just blindsided by the news. But, after you digested that and tried to figure out, I had a good enough year to probably be drafted near the end of the first round, second round, something like that. It's kind of where they were projecting me. And I was debating a little bit, and I decided to come back and really a lot of players left on our team that were really good that year. But Coach Zook came in, and we did the best we could. We weren't as talented, but we didn't have as good a year as we had the prior year. But it was still an amazing, amazing year that I'll never forget.
Yeah, not your senior year, but your junior, as you mentioned, year one under Ron Zook. I want to say, was Zombrecker the offensive coordinator?
Yeah, that's right. It was a big adjustment. Coach Zombrecker came from Marshall, and they had, didn't have the leeway that I had under Coach Spurrier to change plays. And I was, had a lot of success the prior year, so I was a little stubborn as well. It was just kind of a awkward transition, but we still led the SEC in offense and did some good things, but we just weren't as good. I wasn't as good. It just wasn't my best year there, but it was still fine. But there's only one Coach Spurrier, and it just didn't fit as good.
Right. So you get drafted in the first round by the Chicago Bears, one of my old teams.
Right.
Your career with the Bears was, I don't want to say up and down, but you were injured quite a bit up there. But you got to play in a dang Super Bowl, man. Just talk about your days with the Bears, because you spent most of your career there. You were starter for a while, then they put you on the bench, and trust me, I know how all that works, especially in that town. They will boo the hell out of you in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Right.
Just talk about how you enjoyed or playing in Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago was awesome. The city was amazing. The tradition of the team was really cool. There was 5 or 6 Gator players that my teammates were on the Bears with me. The teammates on that team were really fun and, motivated. And it was just a good group of guys. And we had a super talented defense. And, we had our moments on offense, and we were pretty damn good at times. At times we struggled. So that was kind of the lightning rod topic is, what good Rex or bad Rex going to show up. But, it was really, a good offense or bad offense. Sometimes we would hit stride, and sometimes we would just felt like nothing could work. But being able to play in Chicago for 6 years was a dream come true. I mean, to get paid to play football, it doesn't get any better than that. It is such a cool city, and to have success for 1 year where we were, 15-4 with our record throughout the playoffs, and to be able to experience some of the things that I was able to experience, it didn't work out perfect, but I really have no regrets. I mean, I tore my ACL, broke my leg. Things didn't quite work out. Offensively, we weren't juggernauts or anything, but we had our moments. We had our games where we lit it up, and we were good enough to win a couple of playoff games. And, things fizzled out there after 6 years, and was able to extend my career 5 more years. So all in all, it was a success.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about, you got to start as a quarterback for the Bears with all the great tradition in a Super Bowl against Peyton Manning. I mean, there's so many guys that play for years in the National Football League. I mean, I played 14 years, and we never even sniffed an NFC or AFC championship game. And you got to be a starting quarterback in the Super Bowl. I mean, that's something you'll remember the rest of your life.
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, the whole process, every step of the way, the whole journey, was unreal. We were able to win the NFC Championship game in Soldier Field with snow coming down, and locked it up against the Saints, and celebrating the Hallis Trophy with Mrs. McCaskey, his daughter there, and just the whole city lit up and having fun and raising the trophy, and just realizing you're getting ready to play in the Super Bowl was, it was a surreal feeling. And then to take the bus ride to the Super Bowl and go out for warm-ups, knowing you're going to be, starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears in Miami, and Super Bowl was, a feeling I'll never forget. And we came up short, and it rained on us, but like I said, the journey is what I'll always remember. And it had its ups and downs, as did the Super Bowl game, but those life experiences are invaluable. And it was every bit as cool as I dreamt it would be. And the fact that wish we would have won, but is what it is.
Refresh your vehicle and your brand with a vehicle wrap from Wrap Spot. July is your lucky month at Wrap Spot. Mention promo code Shane and receive 13% off your vehicle wrap. We're speaking with Gator great Rex Grossman here on the Titan MR Hotline. Rex, I think you went to Houston, then you went to the Washington Redskins. Head coach was Mike Shanahan, his son Kyle Shanahan, who I'd like to hear your thoughts on Kyle Shanahan, because I think he's one of the best play callers in the National Football League right now. How was he when you played for him?
Yeah, I mean, he was awesome. My last 5 years in the NFL were with him. He was in Houston as offensive coordinator, and when I was there 1 year, and then when his dad got the head job in Washington, he brought me there for that whole span of 4 years. And getting to know him and his offensive scheme, it is by far the best I've had in the NFL. And a lot of it is, pretty damn simple, with a lot of smoke and mirrors. Mm-hmm. But everything looks the same. The stretch running game looks the same with the play action pass. And protections are pretty easy. They pick up 4 week with the back, rapid back to pick up the four guys coming weak. And you did have some hot throws, but it wasn't very complicated with the protection schemes, which I was used to with Coach Spurrier. So a lot of the mental part of it was taken out of it. So you could play fast. The running game was well coordinated with the passing game. And, Coach Spurrier still has him maybe in the drop back passing game, but all things considered, it was a phenomenal system. I was there for when he was building it, and he's taken it and run with it in San Francisco for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Rex, we got a text here on the Titan MR hotline. It comes from Frank. Frank wants to know, who was your favorite wide receiver when you played for the Gators?
Jabbar Gaffney. I mean, I love Taylor Jacobs and Rashae Caldwell and Carlos Perez, and there's a lot of them, but my redshirt year, Jabbar Gaffney and I both redshirted, and we went up against the scout team, and we kind of developed a rapport of knowing exactly where he was going to be. He was able to separate. We were able to make a lot of plays against the defense, and I think that gave us both confidence. And just that next year, as redshirt freshmen, we were both, having great years and ended up winning the SEC championship. So, and then we played with him with the Redskins in 2011. So, yeah, he's the one that stands out the most for sure.
Rex, I was going to ask you, because you brought up protection schemes, and that was one thing. When I went in as a rookie in NFL, I thought I was way ahead of most of the quarterbacks in my meeting room, understanding the passing game, how to attack certain coverages. But when it came to protections, I was lost. I didn't know what hots were, that stuff. How long did it take you to not learn that stuff? Because you learn it pretty quickly, but was that a big adjustment for you? And, in the NFL too, most offenses, they call a play and you run that play no matter what. That right. To me was really difficult for me to learn, is why are we going to try to run a play when we don't think it can work? Did you have issues with that when you first got in the league?
Absolutely. I had issues with a lot of it having to do with not so much knowing exactly who I'm hot off of. It just was all the different types of protection schemes and having to control the offensive line to show them where to go, when all my focus was normally just on safety rotation or what the coverage is going to be. And now I'm focused on things that I was never focused on at the snap. So it took adjustment to get my, to be able to fully focus on, get the protection scheme quickly figured out, and then start focusing on the defense when all you really want to do is play fast. And that's what Coach Spurrier kind of allowed you to do in college was, if they're coming at you, get rid of the ball. Basically that was his protection scheme. So, but it did in college, it did allow you to play fast and allow you to worry about just the coverages. And it's kind of a 7-on-7 mentality, but, or you could check to a 3-step drop if they were all out blitzing or things like that. You could get out of an obvious pressure situation, but going to the NFL, having to identify defensive fronts for the running game, picking out who's you're going to be hot off of and who's going to break their route off, and things that we didn't have to worry about, and it slowed my mental process for first couple of years for sure.
I agree 100% with that. We're speaking with Rex Grossman on the Titan MR hotline, and we got a text from him on the Titan MR text line. Rex, this is Joseph. Joseph wants to know, what was your favorite rivalry game in the SEC?
Favorite rivalry game was, well, Florida State was my favorite rivalry game, but SEC, Florida, Georgia doesn't get any better than Florida, Georgia, but they're all right up in there. Tennessee is probably a team I hate the most, but the most fun game coming over that bridge in the bus and seeing the world's largest cocktail party and realize they're all partying to come watch the game and you're part of the game. You get in there and it feels like it just feels amazing to see all those Gators fans and supporting you against half of the Georgia Bulldog fans, and the combination's really cool, and we always won, so that made it even better.
Absolutely. We got a Facebook Live question for you, brought to you by Meldon Law, where you matter most. Todd wants to know, what is Rex up to these days?
I live in Delray Beach, Florida, and my wife and I, we like to travel, hang out. We have a medical staffing business that we staff nurses in hospitals and doctors in hospitals. It's basically an agency for nurses or doctors that want to, be free agents and work on their own accord, pick their own times. We get them 13-week contracts, day-to-day contracts, and ER nurses, all types of nurses. It's called Florida Medical Staffing. So, and I fell into the staffing business about 11 years ago, and we started our own company, and it's doing great. And it provides a pretty cool lifestyle that as long as I've got a laptop, I can pretty much be anywhere I want to be, and allows me to travel the world and hang out with my wife and do a bunch of fun stuff. So down here in South Florida, having fun.
Good deal. Let's see. Well, your last year at Florida was 01, right?
02.
02. Okay, so we have a couple more years, and then you'll be in the Hall of Fame. I know you're in the Florida Georgia Hall of Fame, but I think you got to be out of school for 10 years, if I'm not mistaken, to go.
I'm in the Florida Hall of Fame.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I made it.
Well, I knew you were going to make it, but I thought
I'm right there with you.
Okay, so maybe you got to be out of school for 5 years then. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know why. I thought 10 years. Okay.
It was 10 years, because in 2012, I think it was 2012, 2013 is when the induction was.
Oh, that's right. It's been 20 years now. What am I thinking?
Yeah, it's been a minute, but what a great honor that was. I mean, probably the coolest Hall of Fame ceremony for me. I mean, just for me, reminiscing, being in Hall 95 and being pretty much a nobody from Indiana. Sometimes I couldn't sleep. I'd run up to the stadium and go into the top row of Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, now Steve Spurrier Field, and just kind of sit there and dream of scenarios and possibilities. And to be able to have that realized and be in the Florida Gator Hall of Fame was really cool, really special moment.
Yeah, that is awesome. I don't know why I lost track of the years, man. We're getting old. Hey, Rex, last thing for you, man. I know, us quarterbacks, we all have some good Spurrier stories that people like to hear. You got any that you want to tell the Gator Nation?
Oh man, he was just a character. It was something every single day. I wish I'd have wrote it down, but I mean, he wasn't a yeller or screamer get in your face, but man, when you did something wrong, he was like an insult comic. I mean, he would get you to, he would make fun of you and then kind of look at somebody else to laugh with him at you. And, just all those moments, I wish I'd have written down what he said, because he's pretty damn funny. He's one of the funniest people I've ever been around in a lot of ways. But I don't know. He came on a recruiting visit to see me on his one visit where he comes to your hometown, and he gets in around 4 or 5, comes over to the house and starts having a couple Coors and Monday night football games on, and he ends up just spending the night at the house in the guest room. And I kind of forgot he was there. Woke up the next morning, and he's in the kitchen just eating French toast, going, "Hey, Ricky, how's it going?" And just surreal as a high school student to have, the legend Steve Spurrier just kind of hanging out, eating breakfast. And then we went on to my high school, and we ended up actually going over to visit Bobby Knight at the IU basketball practice. And to see the two of them relate was pretty interesting. And Coach Spurrier ended up talking to the IU basketball team, and just kind of seeing those two kind of legends interact was pretty cool. And just the whole time I was there at Florida, I never once wasn't kind of starstruck by Coach Spurrier. He was such a presence and a legend that it was really cool to play for someone like that. So I've got nothing but good things to say about him.
Yeah, I just got another text from Larry. Larry wants to know, Rex, did you get robbed of the Heisman?
Well, we lost right before they voted. So, had we won, I feel like I would have got it. But that Tennessee game was a killer, because it took us out of the SEC championship, which, turned a lot of votes. But it was the closest in history up to that point. I know that. So, it is what it is. I'm not going to say I got robbed, but I sure as hell didn't put the nail in the coffin at the end of the year.
Yeah, but you got robbed. We all know that. Last thing for you.
Appreciate it.
I don't know how much you follow Florida now, but we had some lackluster years there. Dan Mullins come in. and we've had 21 wins in 2 years, 2 major bowl games. Kyle Trask had a tremendous year off the bench. Just talk about what Rex Grossman sees from what Dan Mullen's doing with the Gator football program.
Yeah, well, I think he's definitely brought stability to the program and a level of expectation. And I think it really helped that he was there prior and winning a couple national championships and had people. He knows the SEC recruiting system. He knows seems very confident and sure of himself, which is important as a, head coach or a leader. So he knows his system works, and you can tell that players buy into it, and they've had a lot of success. And Kyle Trask has done a great job. I mean, instantly when he got in there against Kentucky last year, it was obvious that he belonged there. He had threw the ball with anticipation. It's very accurate. The game didn't seem too big for him, so he's definitely going to have a great year. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
What do you think, real quick, last thing for you, a couple of minutes left in the program. Kyle Trask didn't really play in high school, had to come off the bench. Nowadays kids are transferring so much. Just the job that you saw him do this past year.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun to watch him play because of his story, but he also, because he belonged there, it wasn't a one-off or anything. You could tell that he, once he put his back foot in the ground and everything was on time, pretty accurate, and made smart decisions. I mean, it wasn't just an amazing year, but he from not playing as much as he's played to getting in there and looking comfortable. I think that's amazing. It says a lot to his character and his confidence and what he's built throughout actually not having a lot of experience, but he's got some experience now, should have some confidence. And as long as, the team around him is good and they put him in good situations, I feel confident he'll make the right plays and be very successful. So we'll see. I'm excited about it. I think we've got a pretty decent schedule, so we should have, it's going to come down to 1 or 2 games like it always does, but should have a pretty good year.
Yes, we should. So, Rex, we appreciate you taking the time to join the program today, my man. Y'all stay safe down in South Florida, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Shane. And I want to say thank you for starting it off right, because you were the person that started off the Spurrier era, which really kicked it off. And you were always one of the quarterbacks I always looked up to. And so I just want to say I appreciate you setting it off and getting this tradition going. So
I appreciate
thank
that.
you.
Rex. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
All right, man.
All right, that's Gator Great, number 8, Rex Grossman, join us on the Titan MR hotline. One of the greatest quarterbacks to ever suit up for us, no question about it. Hey, folks, make sure you tune in the rest of the week. Follow us, like us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Today's show is a wrap, brought to you by Wrap Spot. Take care, be safe out there. See you tomorrow.